Okay.
Uh,
Yun. Yeah, let's see how this first one goes. Everyone's present. Okay, let's start the Nugget Rounds. So for our new people, which is everyone since this is the first episode, Nugget Rounds will be our weekly chat where we take turns sharing some little nuggets of information we've picked up. If you have a nugget to share, feel free to post it down below. So with that, let's introduce ourselves since this is the first episode.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm Kino, one of the people here in the Nugget Rounds, and then we also have.
Hi, my name is Jonathan, and I'm excited to be here. Looking forward to an interesting discussion tonight.
So hi, good evening everyone. So I'm Tina, the postgraduate intern, and I'm here because I wanted to learn more about other people's learnings with regards to their internship. So now, thank you.
And she was bullied by me, let's be honest.
Yeah.
True. They're all bullied
Uh-uh.
by me
Yeah.
to be here. So, because we're doing that, let's yeah,
Uh-huh.
Jonathan, why don't you start us off for this week's Nugget Rounds?
Okay, so well, for I think this is like the inaugural episode of the Nugget Rounds. I think we should like start with something like not well something I saw not necessarily this week, but during my surgery rotation, since I was assisting in ruptured appendicitis case. So in this ruptured appendicitis case, uh, I was asked like what is uh, the infection rate of ruptured appendicitis in patients, and like I know that you usually think that uh, for these kinds of cases, the infection rate would be high, right? I mean, because it's ruptured appendicitis. But just to put everyone in the same page, I'm just gonna go through like the different types of wound classes in surgery. So I mean, it's not really surgery, but it's an important thing to know, right? And when you're in a surgical rotation, so there's class one, two, three, up to four, right? And for class one, we have clean wounds. And then we have class two, which is clean contaminated or clean. We have contaminated for class three and dirty for class four. What's interesting here is that I remember reading this table in Schwartz, which is like the main source of people for surgery in the Philippines. And I would look at the expected infection rates. And this was something that was asked to me before, actually, by someone more senior than me. And there's something there that surprised me when it comes to infection rates. So this is from Schwartz na table. It's actually table 6-8 dun sa Schwartz. This is an audio only podcast, so I really can't share the image, but it's in table 6-8 of Schwartz. If you have Schwartz, you can crack that book open and look at it. But just to reorient everyone, no? So clean wounds the features there is that usually there's no infection, right? And there's no hollow viscous that's penetrated. So these are like no penetrated colon, or for example, for class 2, usually this is yung clean contaminated. You see this in like respiratory or genitourinary tract. But there's no spillage of contents. In contaminated, yeah, I usually have extensive introduction of bacteria in usually a sterile area. And for class 4, this is like when you have like an overt infection and like necrotic tissue. If you look at table 6-8 of Schwartz, going back there, the infection rate for dirty wounds is 3 to 13%. Like that's class 4. If you look at like the bottom of the table, it's 3 to 13%. But if you look at the clean contaminated class 2, an example of which would be colorectal surgery, the expected infection rate is actually 4 to 14%, which is higher. than the dirty wound class. So actually, when I mentioned to the resident that the expected infection rate in dirty wounds is 13%, like she was like, "Anong source mo dyan? Like that seems pretty low." So I go, "Oh, that's from from Schwartz." And yeah, true enough, this is really something weird that comes up, and I think it's something that can be asked of boards. I honestly I don't know what the infection rates are in the Philippines, but since diba they use Schwartz for like reference for the board exam, I think that's something that we should note theoretically, even though if we expect dirty wounds to be probably more uh, infectious there. Probably you expect it to become more infected compared to clean contaminated wounds. So that's my learning for the week.
Wow. Yeah, like wounds talaga, especially in our country na maraming wounds of all sorts, especially mga ER. It really comes into
Yeah,
play, diba?
it does.
Do you wanna comment, Tina?
Ako din, actually ako hindi ako super knowledgeable dun sa infection rates ng wounds. Na medyo na na-reiterate sa akin yung importance ng kinds of wounds and yung infection rates nila. Tsaka since syempre especially kung gusto mo mga DPB, syempre importante din sila to know when managing when managing emergency cases like mga lacerations. Minsan wala mga doktor na kailangan mag-attend doon. Like yun sa community namin, may mga ganun nangyari din sa amin. So sila yung nag-attend doon ng mga block mates. So hearing that, importante siya.
Alright, the community na nga pala.
Mm-mm.
Uh-uh.
You'll encounter din yung mga ganun sa community. Pero kailangan nyo muna magpaalam.
Oh, wow. Looking forward to that.
Yeah, thank you to JonaChan for our surge learning for the week. Yeah, I'll go next. So, ako naman, I'm gonna share some OB nuggets. I chose an interesting mix because the first one I thought was really a smart, practical tip. You know, when you're interviewing a patient and asking about AOG, a lot of times people won't remember it, lalo na if it's like 23 weeks and 4 days. And like, to keep track of that, it's very hard. So a lot of times, you can also ask the patient, ano yung due date nila? If you ask their due date, which people remember, 'cause it's the date usually doesn't change or when it's around to be expected, then you can calculate backwards then what their AOG is. Kasi then you have an idea lang. I mean, it might not be exact, but you have an idea. And that's a good starting place. Especially, you know, when you come to the hospital, a very stressful event, you may not remember everything. And then another interesting one was when we were talking about myoma uteri. And one of the possible things you can give kasi is GnRH agonist. So this is for preoperative shrinkage since that helps minimize the bulk of the mass, easier to operate on. You'd think, oh, bakit myoma? You're gonna give an estrogen along with it. Diba estrogen sensitive yung myoma?
Mhm.
So actually, when you give the GnRH agonist, you give estrogen for bone protection para makakatulong rin for the patient. So it's interesting to think na, you know, we're talking about an OB case. But you have to take into account ortho problems and IM problems because they're all still also one person at the end of it. And then yung wards naman, the interesting idea was the idea of clean intermittent self-catheterization. So the thing is you ask a patient to void and then you catheter them to see how much was retained inside. If there's less than 150 ml retained inside, they can be sent home without a catheter. But if after 24 hours there's consistently more than 150, you still have to monitor this patient more. But it's interesting to remember na just because nakakaihi na yung patient, you have to check, are they able to fully void? Or should you still have to catheter this patient to make sure that everything's clean? It's very, very practical naman. Tina, ikaw, baka may OB sharings ka rin.
Ako naman, nagulat lang ako nung first day ko sa OB kasi nag agad ako sa SIC. So, una ko na lang muna i-share is yung sa IOTA index.
An ideal index.
Nagulat talaga ako nun kasi kaya di pa na-extra katanong sa'kin nung yung fellow sa ultrasound. Nagulat talaga ako dun, sabi shit. Di ko parang ako, actually nagba-blabber na lang ako ng kahit anong puwede, parang hula-hula na lang talaga. Buti na lang medyo naging mabait siya ng konti. Sabi niya sa'kin na, "Okey, search mo na lang sa Google." So, sinerch ko na sa Google. Usap na lang kay Mr. Google. So, yun lang. Yun yung mga B&M features natin for iota index, 'di ba? Yun yung para malaman natin kung if the cyst is malignant or benign yung mass. So, tandaan niyo pa ba yung yung mga B&M features ng iota?
I
Hindi na.
I don't actually know that.
Yeah. So yun, yung B features is first is yung unilocular, then second feature is yung presence of solid components with largest diameter of less than 7 millimeter. Then the presence of acoustic shadows pag yung ultrasound. And then yung smooth multilocular tumor with largest diameter of less than 100 millimeter, and then no blood flow on pag Doppler. Then for the malignant features naman, if there's irregular solid tumor. And another is presence of ascites. The third is yung papillary structures. Third. And then fourth is the irregular multilocular solid tumor with largest diameter of more than or equal to 100 millimeter. And the last feature is very strong blood flow po. So yung color score niya is 4. So yung pag nakita mo sa Doppler, iba-iba yung ang dami-dami niyang kulay. Around 4 colors ata siya kasi parang may yellow, may green, may blue, and may red. Kasi diba usually sa Doppler, red or blue lang siya for Then yun, as in, nabembang talaga ako dito. Kasi hindi ko talaga maalala. So, kasi diba, we have to always rule out malignancy when we detect naman ng mass. Kailangan talagang putukin mo siya lahat para malaman kung meron ba talagang solid tumor. So, yun lang naman for iota index. Then, yung another learnings ko is yung instead na i-remove namin yung both ovaries, hindi namin ni-remove yung right. So, parang ma-prevent din yung yung risk. Kasi diba pag tinanggal natin yung both ovaries, nag-tabs tayo, syempre yung estrogen, hindi na makakapag-produce estrogen. So, at least din kasi siya for cardiovascular diseases. Kaya ang final na nangyari is instead na tanggalin namin yung right ovary, hindi namin tinanggal yung uterus. So, ang ginawa na lang namin is nag-bilateral self-injectomy kami. Tapos actually natanong yung RIC ko noon kung ano yung significance. Tapos, actually, I'm not sure, parang hindi kasi after ng surgery. Yung sabi niya sa akin, basahin ko daw yung journal. So, yun nga. Kasi yung bilateral self-injectomy nga, it prevents the development of ovarian cancer in reproductive age women. Kanina lang sa webinar, napag-usapan din siya, na-discuss din siya ng isang consultant. So, yun lang. According sa studies, nakita nga talaga na mas less yung cases ng women na nagkakaroon ng ovarian cancer kapag tinanggal yung buong nila, fallopian tubes. Yun lang. Yun lang yung aking learning. Medyo hindi ko na-explain ng ayos, pero I hope na sana may na-import ako sa inyong dalawa.
Kasi well, honestly, I've never really heard of the iota index before. Parang if it was mentioned before, I never really looked into it.
Okay.
Because parang pag may mga ganang things kasi, usually I remove it from my brain. Kasi parang, siguro hindi pa to for relevant.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, it's too specific.
Super specific.
And I doubt it, kasi parang, siya di ba, OB ultrasound is its own subspecialty.
Mm-mm.
So I'm not even sure if this is first year OB resident level. So, yeah, di ko alam, kapag mga ganun kasi usually, I don't really try to remember it as much. If it's this a classification I can check online.
Oh, but I mean, you're the one saying na ultrasound's the future, so
Oo. As in, nagulat din talaga ako. Hindi ko na-expect na tatanungin ako ng ganun, no? Pero,
Yeah. It sounds very special. But
we have an ultrasound week. Just ultrasound sharings across.
oh, yeah. That would be very, very nice.
sobrang dami.
Yeah, but the thing about ultrasound is you only look for certain features to rule in or rule out certain pathologies. This is point of care ultrasound because we're not radiologists, or we're not going to be OB ultrasonographers, right? We're going to be doctors who just happens to use ultrasound as an adjunct of our physical exam. So,
Oh, yeah, I forgot to mention pala, sorry. Another one pala is napansin ko din na
okay, yeah.
yun, na-reiterate din ng mga consultants sa mga RICs na do not forget na laging i-refer yung mga obese patients sa dietary kasi syempre they have to take care din sa weight. Especially kasi nga may mga usually 'di ba mga patients din sa OB medyo ano din sila nasa heavier side. So minsan nakakalimutan din na ilagay dun sa plan na i-refer sa dietary yung patient. Yun lang, napansin ko lang yan. Nai-rate rin siya ng consultant. So, nilagay ko na rin siya sa learnings.
Yeah.
That's important. So we have to remember just because it's an OB case, just because it's a case of one service, hindi lang yung case na issue na yun yung kailangan isipan natin.
Yeah. Yeah, that relates to what you mentioned earlier about GnRH agonists for ortho concerns, right? And for endocrine concerns as well. Makes sense. But should I proceed with what, since you mentioned ultrasound, should I proceed with what I learned about ultrasound, or should we like keep it for a future episode?
Another episode.
We're about 26 minutes in. I think let's keep it short for the first one, just to like warm up. But I like the idea of an ultrasound week though. Na parang all ultrasound
So
learnings.
yeah. But like, I guess I wouldn't share it right away for like the first episodes, since there's already a lot of things that we tackled, and it's also something that people will look forward to in the future if they want to tune into the show. Yeah, actually, anyway, it's about learning sana, but about crystallizing colloids. But then it's also a very long discussion, so best to
Usapang fluids. Nako.
yeah. But I really love fluids and electrolytes, man. Like the topic is really intriguing.
Yeah.
And we can go into very deep dives.
Actually, choice of fluids.
Yeah, very
Choice
deep
of
dives
fluids,
into
yeah.
it.
Oo. Actually, interesting siya. Kasi pag ako, pili ka 'di ba ng mga fluids to choose para ibigay sa patient mo. Minsan nakakalito. Parang hindi mo alam kung pwede mong ibigay. Pero
Right.
'di ba may mga iba-iba kasi siyang
Yeah.
options eh. Kunyari pag mga D5NR, D5L. So, yun.
This is an interesting take of where we can take Nugget Rounds in the future of not just nuggets of learning, but we have a week where we talk about fluids lang. We all talk about ultrasound lang. Diba? Parang
Yeah.
it's not just what we learned, but how we can
Oo.
explain it to
Yeah, para may mga points of discussion din between us kasi para-pareho tayo ng nakarelate tayo sa
Yeah.
kasi pag ganun.
So I think, for our first episode, it wasn't so bad. We learned a lot about the types of wounds, yung multi-specialty take into account whether it's estrogen for bone protection or dietary for mga weight issues, yung practical tips like AOG or self-catheterization, and higher stuff like bilateral self-ingectomies or iotas. And we had a very interesting talk this weekend. I think it's a good place to start and see where our 1-year experiment goes for now.
Yeah, that's true. And I'm really excited also to share and learn all of the things that we've been discussing in our internship, because at the end of the day, medicine is about lifelong learning.
Yeah.
So we really need to keep abreast with a lot of the knowledge that we learn and sometimes forget, because it's important that we relearn the knowledge that we've accumulated in the past. So thank you very much.
Yeah, and cumulative learning is, I think, more than cumulative, it's collaborative
Yeah.
learning. Especially you see now,
Yeah.
especially like us, we're all learning this together, and that's the fun part.
Yeah.
Tina, ikaw, may last words ka ba?
Yeah, same din na I get to to hear what you guys learned in your rotation. So at least may idea ko kung what are the things that I should know then in case ma-rotate man ako sa surgery.
Wow.
Anong in case?
In case what to expect. I mean what to expect. Na lang. Kasi
Yeah.
syempre baka mamaya mabembang na naman ako.
Wala pa akong fun outro, I guess, for now. See you next week.
See you next week, guys.
See you next week.